The story begins in space as a research vessel flies amongst the stars. Talking is heard as Galactic Federation scientists surround a central clear tube containing a tiny Metroid. One asks about the survivors while another shakes her head. The only ones who survive the encounter are in this room, about 12. Still, they've secured a sample. A Metroid as spoken of in Chozo history. The ultimate warrior whose ability to siphon energy could help power the Federation. The ship begins to shake and an explosion rips through the hull. Dozens of space pirate ships surround the research vessel as one docks next to the newly made hull. All is quiet until the space pirates fire a volley of shots, killing everyone on board. Ridley then emerges and immediately spots the Metroid. He bares his teeth in what approximates a smile as his shadow falls over the Metroid. The music shifts as the blackness transitions to a lush green planet. 3 kids around the age of 10 are running up a large grassy hill while K2L Research Colony flashes across the screen. They reach the top and look back at the colony. The young girl, Samus, shields her eyes from the sun as she looks at all the research buildings that had been constructed.
It looks so small.
One of the boys, Hip, complains that he wants to go back, while the other, Gunpei, pulls out a sled from his backpack and unfolds it. She excitedly takes it from his hands and meticulously looks for the perfect spot to place it on the steep hill. Samus smiles deviously and jumps onto the front with the 2 boys behind. They take off down the hill, picking up speed and launching into the air a few times, causing them to lose control. The 3 start heading toward the colony and only just barely slow down thanks to Samus's quick thinking before slamming against one of the buildings. A blonde woman comes out at the noise and looks at her sternly. Samus smiles sheepishly as the boys run off. Virginia Errant sighs, smiles back, and takes Samus by the hand.
Could you please try not to break your neck?
Well, I wasn't trying.
Virginia rolls her eyes as she leads Samus inside and taps her husband, Rodney, on the shoulder as he's typing on a computer. He ruffles Samus's hair as Virginia tells him about their daughter's adventure. Despite their busyness, the 2 of them are kind, attentive parents, but they still get pulled into work. Their attitudes instantly become more serious as another researcher enters and tells them that Mother is online. Virginia and Rodney enter the largest building in the colony, which is just one central room. In the center is Mother Brain, a biomechanical supercomputer that could potentially link the Federation's databases at speeds incomprehensible to current tech. Mother Brain is essentially a giant brain in a jar with one large eye situated on the frontal lobe. Her stem consists of a tangle of thick wires that tie her to the researcher's network. However, she doesn't exactly look like the version from the games, as she lacks the spikes embedded in her upper lobes. The researchers greet Mother Brain before giving her tasks, which she completes with startling speed. It isn't long before Samus's parents excitedly talk about the potential of Mother Brain. She would serve as the basis for the Aurora program, a series of mechanical recreations that mimic the functionality of Mother Brain. Though a single one couldn't compare to the original, a network installed across the galaxy would make this a negligible liability. The telecommunication, mathematical, and problem-solving possibilities alone would push society forward in a massive way, to say nothing of the unknown potential. Suddenly, a young researcher bursts in and tells everyone that they're here. Virginia and Rodney look at each other nervously before heading to greet the spacecraft that has landed at the dock. As the door opens, 3 bird-like aliens emerge. Samus, who's been following her parents, watches from behind a nearby crate as they greet the Chozo, which consists of the Elder, Grey Voice, and Spring Wind. Rodney excitedly tells them that they've successfully gotten Mother Brain online, which pleases Grey Voice and Spring Wind, but the Elder seems distracted as he's caught sight of Samus. Realizing she's been spotted, Samus emerges, unafraid. The Errands try to apologize, but the Elder waves it away. He takes her by the hand and explains to Samus that the Chozo are a dying race, ancient and powerful once, but even now, they're nearly extinct. Spring Wind is the youngest amongst them, and even he is centuries old. The bravery and optimism of youth is something to be cherished, but this state of affairs is also why they provided Chozo DNA to the Federation for the Mother Brain project. Allowing the supercomputer access to millennia of Chozo knowledge would not only help future generations, But this mother and her Aurora children would spread peace throughout the galaxy, serving as the last gift of the Chozo. Hearing this, Samus begins to sniffle as tears drip down her cheeks.
I'm so sorry. It must be awful to be alone like that.
The elder gently wipes her tears away before explaining that his people are never alone. Not truly. Memories carry them forward. Samus doesn't understand, but they rejoin the others as Grey Voice is walking from Mother Brain's building, talking with Rodney. He's pleased with the progress and promises that the three of them would return soon from Zebes. The Chozo board their ship and leave, with Samus enthusiastically waving goodbye. The scene then shifts to Ridley on his ship as a space pirate nervously enters a test chamber with the tiny Metroid. He tries to leave, but Ridley threatens him with his tail. The pirate is closed in and tries to attack the Metroid, but it quickly latches to his chest and drains him of his life energy, leaving him a withered husk. Ridley begins to laugh at the sight.
Incredible. And this is only a child. Imagine the limitless potential of a fully grown one. No wonder the Federation wanted it.
Another pirate agrees, but laments how the Metroids are impossible to control. There's no telling what it would target. In all likelihood, every living thing nearby would become its victim.
Our spies have already found the thing we need to control it.
Days have passed as Samus and her friends climb another hill near the colony. Hip is complaining once again, while Gunpei comments that this is one of the bumpiest in the area. Samus is excited at the prospect of catching even more air when a small object is seen falling from the sky behind her. An explosion rips through a hill to the north, causing them all to turn. They barely have time to react as more artillery rains down around the colony. Samus's eyes go wide as she wordlessly rips the sled out of Gunpei's hands and rushes down the hill, only barely dodging the nearby explosions. By this time, space pirates have arrived in the colony and begin slaughtering everyone in sight. Samus hides, nervously wringing her hands as she whispers her parents' names. Taking a deep breath, she quickly and quietly heads to where she last saw them, the Mother Brain building. It's there that she spots her father's lifeless body. She timidly tries to approach it when her mother leaps out from her hiding space and grabs her. Virginia quickly gets them both to safety as Rodney's body is dragged away, and Ridley emerges from the shadows with a bloody tail. He doesn't bother to look around as he approaches Mother Brain.
So, this is the Federation's Mother Brain. Tell me, what are you capable of?
The Federation has designed me to work with the upcoming Aurora units to teach them telecommunications, data processing, biology, psychosocial assessment, and technology development. The Aurora units will then communicate these ideas with one another in order to...
I don't care about the Aurora. I want you, your Chozo tech, and I know you can do so much more.
Ridley reveals the Metroid in a small container, holding it before Mother Brain's eye.
You know what this is. All Chozo do, but what I want to know is if you can control it. Could you become the center of a Metroid hive mind?
Unlike her answers to the other questions, Mother Brain takes some time to answer this. Still in hiding, Virginia murmurs the Metroid name to herself, realizing what it was. Finally, Mother Brain answers that in time, and with more Metroids to analyze their neural patterns, she could control them. After all, they're creatures based entirely on instinct and the need to feed. Ridley is pleased, but Virginia's eyes go wide, knowing what could happen if the space pirates actually controlled the Metroids. In her panic, she remembers a piece of Chozo data mentioning a Metroid's weakness to ice. Rapidly looking around the room, she spots a canister of liquid nitrogen nearby. She motions Samus to stay still, but the young girl claws at her mother's shirt desperately, begging her to stay. Virginia pulls away and rushes to the liquid nitrogen. Ridley hears her movements and turns, but she's already grabbed the canister and immediately bashes it into his head with all of her might. Ridley stumbles back, more off guard than hurt, as the Metroid's container tumbles from his hand, shattering on the ground. The Metroid shakes glass from itself before rearing up to attack, but Virginia immediately fires a stream of liquid nitrogen into it, freezing it instantly. It falls to the ground, useless. She lets out a relieved sigh before Ridley's tail pierces her back. Ridley's scream of rage and Samus's scream of fear mingle together as the life fades from her eyes. Ridley throws Virginia's body into a corner and grabs Samus by the neck. He begins to squeeze, causing Samus to claw at his hand, struggling to breathe.
I should have killed you first. Made that woman watch a child die as I ripped you apart piece by piece. But you'll suffer in her place.
Ridley's tail impales Samus, but he makes sure she's still alive, at least for now. His sadist lust had been triggered as he orders a pirate to kill everyone in the colony, save the girl. She would get to watch her world burn as she died. Screams ripped through the air while Ridley and his men loaded Mother Brain onto his ship. Samus could only cry in pain as the pirates departed and silence fell over the colony. Finally, she passes out. Samus wakes and starts. Her vision is blurred, but we see the frozen Metroid nearby start to thaw. It finally rises into the air again, floating peacefully, until noting her presence. It tries to attack, but is suddenly frozen again. The Chozo have arrived, answering a distress beacon. Greyvoy switches his arm cannon to missiles and finishes off the Metroid, while Springwind checks Samus. She's just barely clinging to life, and the Elder begs them to save her. They take her aboard the ship and stop the bleeding, but she's too injured. Thinking carefully, the Elder decides to infuse her with his DNA. Their natural healing ability will save and extend her life. It was never meant to be this way, but she will now be their legacy. We hear an adult Samus slowly breathing in and out. As she opens her eyes, 10 years later flashes across the bottom. She holds a Federation blaster at the ready before jumping out and shooting 2 space pirates. Ducking back into cover, Samus glances over her shoulder to see the rest of the pirates still looking for her. A female voice then comes over the comms, warning her about a pirate in her blind spot. Turning quickly, Samus just barely sees it as a shot rings out and the pirate lifelessly crumples to the ground. She thanks Anthony Higgs as he reaches out a hand and pulls her to her feet. Together, they push forward through the rocky terrain while keeping an eye out for any more enemies. As they dispatch more pirates, Samus tries to contact the woman from before, but all she gets is static. Anthony warns her to stay calm, but Samus calls her name, Ellen, more desperately. She looks to her wrist to locate Ellen's position, then takes off with Anthony calling after her. Samus ignores him as she tucks her pistol back in its holster and an arm cannon forms around her right arm. Samus cuts through the pirates with ease, but a new male voice gets on the comms.
Turn back, Aaron. Your orders were to stick with Higgs. Hardy can handle herself.
She ignores him as she finally reaches Ellen's position. There, she sees her friend on the ground as pirates circle around her. Samus leaps into action, blasting 2 of them before grabbing the third and using it as a shield against the others. She takes out the rest before kicking the remaining pirate to the ground. Breathing heavily, she reaches her hand out to Ellen, but is surprised as her friend angrily slaps it away. Ellen calls her an idiot as she picks herself up perfectly fine. The rocky terrain and the bodies of the pirates begin to digitize away as the simulation ends. Federation Homeworld flashes across the screen as Ellen continues to chew out Samus, telling her that she had it under control. She tells Samus to step back before hitting a switch that was tucked into her sleeve. A massive electric field burst out. With just a few more steps, they would have been fried.
Look, I'm sorry, but you don't know the pirates like I do. They don't waste time with prisoners. They are ruthless and kill anything in their way. There's no guarantee this trap would have worked.
I don't need to be rescued, Samus. You don't need to protect me. In every one of these training simulations, not once have the pirates got me. Not once!
Simulations aren't the same.
Oh, that's so. Then why did your butt need saving by Anthony if you're so good?
Anthony arrives and tries to step between them, urging Ellen to calm down. Samus can only stay quiet as the male voice on the comms comes in, their squad leader, Ian Malkovich. They all immediately stand at attention, but Ian sighs and tells them to be at ease.
Every time, Samus. Every time you think someone's in trouble or something's wrong, you have to step in. Ellen's trap was approved by the Federation and designed to counter situations like what she was in. These simulations aren't so we can do whatever we want. We can only work within the knowns and guidelines set by our leaders.
Samus again tries to argue, urging him that there was no way for her to know exactly what situation Ellen was in. All she can do is save the people that she can and never leave anyone behind. She doesn't care if the Federation approves or not. Ian shakes his head, admitting that the test was a success, but only because Samus had the arm cannon. She again tries to argue about its usefulness, but Ian cuts her off. His older brother, Adam, wants to see her. Samus silently walks out of the room as the words of Grey Voice echo inside her head.
A Chozo warrior's one duty is the safety of all. That includes themselves. This doesn't mean that everyone can be saved, but we must always try.
She closes her eyes and breathes in. When she opens them, she's on another planet. Zebes, 6 years ago, flashes across the screen. Grey Voice is saying those exact words as a 14-year-old Samus is training with him. She's wearing the Zero suit, but is only equipped with the paralyzer gun. He explains that firepower is important, but knowing how to fight when you're not the most powerful thing in the room is essential. He snaps his fingers as several mechs head toward her, but she manages to avoid their shots and disable them.
Excellent, Samus. Well done indeed. You have all but mastered the Zero suit and paralyzer. Now, let's see how you handle strength. Materialize your power suit.
Samus groans but closes her eyes to focus. The arm cannon forms around her right arm while the suit begins to materialize. But just as it's about to become complete, it phases out completely. Samus collapses to the ground, exhausted.
I'm sorry. It's too much. It's still too much.
Grey Voice pats her shoulder as he sits down next to her. He tells her not to worry, but still she apologizes. He sits silently for a moment, listening to her heavy breathing, before telling a story. The development of the power suit was done by a lone Chozo named Drin. He believed that the key to strength was adaptability, to never shun a new idea and instead find ways to integrate that idea into their lives. Hence the modular nature of the power suit. Even just the arm cannon can be versatile, whether firing concentrated energy blasts or concussive missiles with a twist of the wrist. The power suit itself can be entered like traditional Federation armor, or it can be materialized at a moment's notice, and that's to say nothing of its advanced morph ball and charge beam features. Samus shudders at the mention of the morph ball, making Grey Voice chuckle.
The idea of all this is simply to allow its wearer to take on whatever obstacles lie in their path. But the key to all of it is the mental connection it has to its wearer. It may be bonded to your DNA, but until you accept the past, it will never be yours, not fully.
I do accept the past, though. How could I not when it's all I ever think about? My parents are dead. Ridley killed everyone I ever cared about. And now I'm completely alone.
She pauses and turns away from Grey Voice.
I'm sorry. I know you've all done so much for me. I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for you, but I feel like I need to get out there. How can I protect anyone when I'm stuck on Zebes? Joining the Federation is the only way to make that happen.
Grey Voice pats her shoulder again, comforting her.
I understand. The Federation has its own problems. You're not ready for that world, not yet. Until then, have patience. Now, let's try again.
As Grey Voice talks, the camera pans closer to Samus's eyes as she looks determined and fierce. She blinks and suddenly she's in the office of Adam Malkovich, her commanding officer, as he urges her to have patience. Samus insists that she does, but why should she ignore someone in trouble?
It's not about saving someone or not. It's about respecting your fellow soldiers. Ellen had a plan. Trust her to execute that plan.
How am I supposed to know the plan when her comms go silent? I had a decision to make. I made it. And we still won.
Adam maintains his composure and reminds her.
The entire point of the Galactic Federation is peace and order throughout the galaxy, something that is only obtainable through cooperation. Without this cooperation and the following of rules, then what's the point of keeping order?
Samus only laughs, stating that's just repeating the same lines from the Federation's training program. Bureaucracy wasn't going to save anyone. She knew that firsthand. Adam simply avoids the implication and asks why she's wearing the Zero suit again. He can clearly see it where her arm cannon had formed, ripping her training suit. She tries to cover it, but sighs and asks why they wouldn't use such a powerful tool. Adam reminds her that it was a practice exercise. Someone could have been seriously hurt. Samus tries to object again, but Adam cuts her off with a single word: lady.
That's what you are, aren't you, Samus? A lady, convinced she knows best, and that we should all bend to her whims.
He looks as if he'll continue on, but stops himself. Instead, he asks if she has any objections before sending her out of the room. Samus tightens her fist as she leaves and is about to punch the opposite wall when she hears Ellen's voice.
Do you really want to deal with another lecture? Come on, let's take a walk.
As they walk, Ellen apologizes for getting mad. Samus says she knows Ellen is strong, but can't help herself. If it's possible for her to save someone, she's going to do it. She couldn't forgive herself otherwise. As they talk, they see a bounty hunter delivering his bounty. Ellen tells Samus that it's Psylux, a well-renowned and brutal hunter. Samus silently watches the transaction before asking Ellen who bounty hunters report to. Ellen explains that hunters technically report to the Federation as that's how they get paid, but the methods used are up to them. As long as a mission is accomplished, the Federation is satisfied. Samus scoffs at the idea when Federation politicians and bureaucrats enforce strict rules on their own soldiers. Nothing gets done effectively. No wonder they rely on hunters. At least they have the freedom to get the job done.
You don't want to be a hunter, Samus. They work alone. It's a hard, cruel life.
Samus only laughs at that as the two reach the roof of the Federation training facility and look out over the setting sun. She absently watches the creatures flying in the sky, the different alien races milling about below, the mix of so many cultures. There's so many people, and yet she curls up, resting her chin on her knees. She glances at Ellen, who is lying down with her eyes closed. Samus shakily reaches toward her shoulder, but stops before it's even halfway there. She clenches her fist, brings it close to her chest, and wipes away the tears that were starting to form with the other hand. When Ellen opens her eyes at Samus' sniffles, Samus says,
I'm the last, you know. The last survivor of K2L. The last of the Chozo. The last to use their power suit. How do you move on, knowing you're all alone? How do you continue to live when everything good in your life has been stolen? Even when I try to save people, they tell me I'm wrong. But I want to fight for their peace. No more children should have to suffer what I have. Someday, I'll put an end to the space pirates. I promise.
Ellen smiles gently and takes her hand, assuring her that she's not alone. Samus grips it tight and holds on to it. They had been friends ever since she first arrived at the Federation, but she never opened up. Ellen knew what happened to her parents and knew that she was raised by the last of the Chozo, but beyond that, Samus had stayed quiet. Maybe it was time to tell her more. Samus begins to talk as the camera again slowly zooms in on her eyes. It focuses on her pupils before pulling back out, revealing that we're now on Zebes, 5 years ago. Samus is finally in the full power suit as she trains with Grey Voice. He watches from nearby as mechs close in on her. She's able to dodge their shots before disabling them with her arm cannon. She's about to give a confident thumbs up to Grey Voice when one of the mechs reactivate and slam her against a nearby rock. Samus is fine, but the power suit destabilizes and the mechs stop. The Elder suddenly appears next to Grey Voice, chuckling. He thinks she's making fine progress, but it's never good to relax too much in enemy territory. He then asks how she's handling her suit's morph ball and charge beam abilities.
She's not. She's afraid of the morph ball.
Of course I am. How can I even imagine curling into a ball that tiny? Every bone in my body will be crushed.
The Elder laughs heartily as he summons Springwind. The young Chozo complains he's getting too old for this as his power suit forms around him. The suit then curls into a ball much smaller than his entire body, only up to Samus's knees.
See? That's weird. That's just too weird. I can't do it. You say there's a pocket space inside the suit? I say you're out to kill me.
How many times must I repeat it? The body becomes pure energy within the suit. Your bones will be perfectly fine. This is an essential tool for navigating tight corridors and dodging incoming enemies. You could have avoided the training mech if you were willing to do this. I know you saw it coming.
Springwind uncurls from the morph ball and adds in that it isn't the tiny space that's weird, it's seeing everywhere around you at once. The Elder smiles and asks her about her progress with the charge beam. Samus nervously shifts in place as the Elder tells her to take heart. The charge beam is just as vital a tool as the morph ball, allowing the wielder to channel their own stamina through the power suit to create a large blast. A normal power shot is more potent than most Federation weaponry, but few things can withstand the charge beam. He assures her that all of this will come naturally in time.
Patience, right?
They tell her to get some rest, but she leaves to explore Zebes. She enjoys the beauty of the dense woods and crystal clear waters of Brinstar, which eventually leads to the natural hot springs near the mountains of Norfair. The animals are unafraid as she walks amongst them until the sun begins to set. Sitting down, Samus notices a shooting star flitting across the sky. She smiles peacefully, until it heads toward the planet, creating a huge explosion that kicks up debris and sends her hurtling back against a nearby tree. She gets to her feet and begins making her way to the Chozo, materializing her arm cannon and taking down space pirates that are dropping in. She finds Grey Voice and Springwind on either side of the Elder, fending off the pirates in the middle of a massive crater. Samus slides down into the crater, hoping to save her family. All of them are bloodied, but as soon as they see Samus, they order her to their ship's life pod.
I won't leave you! What about all the lessons? What Chozo warrior's duty is the survival of all? I won't let this happen again!
Samus, let free old men protect the last shining light this universe has for us. Please, please be our legacy. Now go!
Samus begins to cry as Springwind takes out more incoming space pirates. The Elder gently pats the top of her head as Grey Voice pushes her in the direction of the ship's life pod, just outside of the crater. She finally starts to move, scrambling out of the crater as an immense figure drops from the pirate ship and lands on the opposite side of her. The ground trembles under its weight, causing Samus to lose balance, but as she looks back, she spots Ridley perched on the large figure's shoulder.
The last of the Chozo. Finally. I've spent years hunting for this planet, and this is all that's left. Pathetic. How fitting it is that you're undone by your own technology. Mother Brain is the boon we've needed for ages. So much progress in so little time. Even Kraid here was created by her. But there's one piece of information that you kept from her, yet shared with the Federation. Where is the Metroid homeworld?
Samus is unable to hear anymore as she reaches the ship and accesses the escape pod. Hopefully it would be small enough to escape their attention. Suddenly, a scream rips through the air. Scrambling to the window, she can see the broken body of Springwind as Kraid lifts his arm.
Don't resist! Tell them, please! Please don't die!
She fights back tears as Grey Voice catches her eye. A small smile crosses his face, and she knows exactly what he plans. She shakes her head, but despite her pleas, he launches the pod with his suit. Samus screams in utter frustration as she takes off into space. Far below, she can just barely make out Grey Voice unleashing a charge beam directly at Ridley. However, it's easily blocked by Kraid. Samus's palms begin to bleed, her fists are clenched so tightly as a small explosion engulfs the surface of the planet. The Chozo chose extinction and saving her over their own survival. Her tears begin to flow as the camera pans outside of the life pod and into space before transitioning back to her own pupil, where she's talking to Ellen.
The rest you've heard. The Federation found me adrift in space. A lost child curled into a ball and crying uncontrollably. Twice now, my family has been killed. And despite their sacrifice, Ridley and the pirates are still thriving. It's enough to make you think you're meant to be alone.
Ellen says nothing but hugs her tightly. Samus pats her hand as she looks toward the sky. The camera follows her view, but as it returns to the ground, it pans past her to Adam Malkovich, who's looking at the same sky from his office. Behind him, a recording is running showing Samus when she first arrived on the Federation homeworld. Her face is streaked with tears, her eyes devastated and hollow. Any attempt to engage with her is met with anger, and she's reclusive otherwise. The days pass on the recordings until Adam himself arrives to speak with her. They both sit quietly for a while, not even looking at each other. Finally, Adam breaks the silence by asking if he can tell her a story, which she quietly accepts. He recounts his own encounter with the space pirates and how they murdered his parents. All he was able to save was his younger brother. Samus stays quiet for a long time while Adam waits patiently. Samus finally says that she hates being alone. Adam assures her that with the Federation, she won't be. Ian enters, apologizing for Samus's behavior, but Adam tells him not to worry. He turns off the old recordings and tiredly sits in his chair.
The problem is, she's brilliant. She has the talent, the drive, even the decision-making skills. If today was a real skirmish, she would have saved Ellen's life. The pirates only take useful prisoners, and even then, it's never a guarantee.
But you know the Federation. Protocol needs to be followed. We can't forget that.
Protocol needs to be followed. Yet they hire hunters to deal with major problems and get around their own red tape. It feels like we've been gifted this perfect knife from the Chozo. They honed her, taught her the battle tactics she needed to know. All we're doing is dulling that edge.
Maybe, but she would have been lost without you, Adam. You're the one who rescued her.
Adam only nods before pulling up a file. He has a mission for Ian. Weeks pass, and the Federation base is abuzz with talk as Samus walks down the street. She doesn't understand why until reaching a large screen in the center of the city. The space pirates have attacked a research vessel and slaughtered everyone on board, taking the cargo for themselves. Samus immediately realizes it's the same vessel Ian was assigned to protect and rushes to Adam's office. Bursting in, she demands,
What happened? How did Ian die?
Adam is sitting away from her, his voice calm and steady. Ian's mission was to guard the Metroid secured from their home planet, a highly kept secret that the last of the Chozo entrusted the Federation. They wanted some good to come from this creature, but somehow the pirates knew of the ship's purpose and attacked. 24 Metroids were secured at great cost. Ian sacrificed himself to destroy half. The rest are in the space pirates' hands. Samus urges that the Federation use their full force to get them back, to finally take the fight to Zebes and stop Ridley, to avenge Ian. Adam finally loses his quiet demeanor and explodes.
Don't you think I know that? I would gladly bring the full fury of the Federation military and wipe them from existence if I could, but I can't. The plan has already been decided. Our usual tactic. A small Federation task force will be infiltrating and stealthily taking back the Metroids while bounty hunters distract them.
Samus is left stunned at Adam's outburst and hangs her head. She then quietly asks to be part of the task force, but Adam refuses. The team has already been chosen, with Ellen insisting to be part of it and leaving Samus in the dark. Samus goes pale hearing this.
I'm going after them.
You won't. I'm putting a stop to that idea right here and now.
I'm going. Any objections, sir?
Adam can only hang his head in despair as Samus leaves. She grabs some supplies before stealing a Federation ship. The power suit digitizes around her with the last piece forming the visor. Behind it, we see her face, hard and determined. Samus arrives on Zebes and begins exploring the surface, looking for any sign of the Federation squad. It isn't long before she finds the corpse of a bounty hunter. In the distance, she sees a Federation ship. Samus begins running toward it as she passes another dead hunter. Seeing the body, she picks up the pace until she passes a ridge, bringing the ship into full view. But it's too late. The ship has been picked clean of anything useful, while the bodies of everyone on board are strewn about. Samus desperately looks from face to face, searching for Ellen, until she finally finds her. She's clutching her electric field device, but Ellen never got the chance to use it. Samus removes her helmet and kneels down next to her friend.
I'm so sorry. I know you wanted to protect me. Everyone does, but then everyone dies. I'm meant to be alone. I'll avenge you, Ellen. I'll avenge us both.
She wipes the tears from her eyes as she stands and puts her helmet back on. Solemnly, she closes Ellen's eyes before taking her dog tag. Samus then accesses Ellen's data logs. It wasn't long before the space pirates discovered their presence, but they were able to scan Zebes and locate Kraid, who seems to have created a burrow in Brinstar. But looking over the scans, it's obvious that Brinstar is no longer the lush forest she once knew. Suddenly, she hears a cacophonous screeching. Looking behind her, a horde of ravenous Scree are heading toward her. She takes off running toward Brinstar, dodging the bombarding Scree, but soon reaches a cavern that she can't fit through, even after turning off the power suit. As the horde gets closer, she desperately reactivates it and tries to use the morph ball. It's just small enough that she can fit through, allowing her to enter the cavern. Samus uncurls from the morph ball as she reaches an open space. Amazed, she looks over her body, then tries again, getting used to it.
It's still weird.
Samus makes her way through the cavern, following the map left by the Federation. She notes how all the water has become acid, a sign of the space pirates' corruption. It's not long before she uses the morph ball to squeeze through another gap and finds herself in the lair of Kraid. Sensing her presence, Kraid opens its eyes and roars. Samus immediately goes on the offense, shooting its immense body, but it seems to do nothing. There's little room to move as Kraid begins throwing its claws like sickles, quickly growing them back and tossing more, making up for its limited mobility. Samus is only barely able to dodge, and even the missiles she fires harmlessly bounce off its hide. Unsure of what to do, Samus hesitates just enough that it's able to grab her. Kraid begins to squeeze as Samus's visor flashes warnings of the increased pressure. In desperation, she shoots Kraid in the eyes, making it scream in pain but not release her. Seeing his open mouth, Samus unloads a volley of missiles inside of it. The explosions tear up Kraid's mouth as it finally begins to bleed. Kraid throws her against the wall in agony, but she's able to cling to it, now knowing what to do. When the massive creature looks for her again, she launches herself from the wall, firing a missile into its eyes. Kraid screeches in pain as it swipes the air blindly, but Samus is able to dodge it as she lands on his mouth and spreads it wide with her legs as power builds in her arm cannon. Springwind's death flashes in her memory as she unleashes the massive beam straight down its mouth. Kraid's eyes go wide, then becomes hazy as it collapses to the ground, dead. Samus removes her helmet, exhausted and amazed at what she's accomplished.
I could do this. I can do this.
Donning the helmet once more, she makes her way out of the caverns and finds herself overlooking Norfair. The once tranquil lands filled with hot springs have now become a lava-filled waste lined with space pirate outposts drawing upon the geothermal energy. Maybe there she could find Ridley. She stealthily begins taking down the space pirates, making her way into one of the outposts. There, she's able to access one of their computers and begins searching through their records. The space pirates' goal ever since the attacks on K2L, Zebes, and the Federation research vessels was harnessing the limitless power of the Metroids in order to attack the heart of the Federation. With their immense speed, tenacious bodies, and insatiable desire for life force energy, Metroids are near unstoppable. But controlling them was another matter. They needed a way to wrangle them after conquest was complete. Mother Brain proved to be the answer. Its immense neural network could be amplified to actually control the Metroids, at least in theory. Due to the loss of the Metroid on K2L, testing proved incomplete, but Mother Brain was still invaluable. She strengthened space pirate weaponry, could coordinate attacks, and even developed Kraid. Ridley spent years trying to find the Metroid homeworld with no success. That is, until the Federation foolishly decided to secure more for their own purposes. Ridley seized the opportunity and finally obtained enough Metroids to begin their operations, despite Ian's sacrifice cutting the haul in half. With all of their preparations over the years, it wouldn't be long until Mother Brain could fully control the Metroids. As Samus reads, a shadow moves behind her and red eyes open. She's barely able to react as Ridley lunges from the rafters and slams her through the nearby wall into the next room, a large training facility for the pirates. Samus is left reeling as Ridley brutally slams her repeatedly against the floor before pinning her to the wall. His tail slowly coils up and strikes out. However, she's able to just barely dodge it. Using the opportunity, she fires her power shots into his chest, causing him to lurch back. She prepares a missile, but Ridley grabs it out of the air and slams it back into her. Alarms go off in her suit as she tries to recover, but panic is taking over. Images flash before her eyes as she remembers the corpse of her father, her mother's sacrifice, the burning of K2L, Ridley impaling her, and the death of the Chozo. All caused by this monster. She screams in terror and takes off her helmet as she begins to breathe deeply. Seeing this, Ridley begins to laugh, a coarse cackle that freezes Samus in place.
And here I thought a Chozo survived. Instead, it's just a child playing in armor. Pathetic.
His speed is shocking as she rushes forward and grabs her by the throat before taking flight. Ridley rips through the ceiling and perches on the edge of the roof as rivers of lava flow far below. His eyes focus on hers as he tightens his grip. The suit starts to spark and hiss from the strain. It's not going to last much longer. There's only one thing Samus can do. She activates the suit's self-destruct and attempts to eject at the same time. It explodes in Ridley's face as the force flings Samus's limp body toward the lava. Ridley roars in anger as the explosion knocks him back inside the training facility, landing hard. But he's not injured, only a little charred, and absolutely livid. He quickly returns to the roof and scans the area below, but there's no sign of her. Ridley flies around the lava waste as one last search before heading to another outpost, letting out another shriek of frustration. As he leaves, Samus hangs her head in relief. The explosion may have cleared her of the lava, but she could still barely move after the fall. She only had enough energy to crawl under cover. Thankfully, the Zero suit had protected her from any major injury, but her face is bleeding profusely, the suit is torn in places, and she's exhausted. But Samus doesn't care about any of that. Instead, she spots a piece of shrapnel from her power suit. Clutching it to her chest, she begins to cry as the sun sets behind her. Samus wakes up the next morning to find that her injuries have mostly healed thanks to her Chozo DNA. Ignoring the dried blood on her face, she stiffly gets to her feet and notes that beyond the Zero suit, she only has the emergency paralyzer gun to defend herself. But her only option now is escape. Ridley was far stronger than she ever could have imagined. Adam was right. She wasn't ready. But she could at least warn the Federation of the pirates' plans for the Metroids. She'd have to steal a ship. Samus carefully makes her way into an outpost built into the side of a mountain. Using the air ducts, she manages to sidestep most of the pirates until she finds a massive metal door. Thinking it's the ship hangar, she uses the paralyzer on the nearby pirate and opens it just enough for her to squeeze through. She quickly closes it behind her as the pirate regains consciousness and sounds the alarm. But Samus hasn't found the hangar. Instead, it's the remains of a massive Chozo mural. As she looks at it, memories come flooding back of a time shortly after the Chozo rescued her, back when the pain was so fresh and she refused to talk. But the Elder always kept his patience and one day brought her to this room. The mural within depicted some of the history of the Chozo, their time exploring space and developing new technology. The center of the mural was solely dedicated to a massive Chozo in a unique power suit. The Elder had explained that this was the Varia suit, a more powerful version of the power suit that a legendary warrior was someday said to use. But with so few of them left, it seemed as if it was little more than a myth. The Elder had broken down as he recounted their history. Tears streamed from his tired eyes as he told her something that never stuck with her until now.
We are never truly alone, Samus. We could be cut away from our friends and family. They could be ripped away from us in truly awful ways. And life can appear utterly hopeless. But if we remember them, hold them close to our hearts, then they will always be with us, and will be all the stronger for it.
Samus sees a faint image of her younger self bending down at a corner of the mural, carving figures into it. She kneels down as the image disappears and wipes away the dust. There, she finds what she had carved all those years ago. Herself, her parents, and the 3 Chozo. A tear trickles down her face as Samus caresses her old carving. But the moment is interrupted as the space pirates begin prying open the large door. Samus rises to her feet, wiping her eyes, and staring intently at the depiction of the Varia suit. She was trapped here, but she wouldn't go down without a fight. Hardening her eyes, she points the paralyzer at the door. But as it's thrown open, a brilliant white light fills the room as the mural crumbles around her. The pirates shield their eyes, but Samus is unaffected. She watches as the Varia suit emerges from behind the rubble, and when she gingerly touches it, the suit reforms around her. A warmth fills her as the power of the Varia suit is unleashed. As the light fades, her power shots rip through the space pirates. They can barely react as she easily takes them all out, except for one. She throws the survivor against the wall and points her arm cannon at it.
Where's Ridley?
The pirate can only sputter the words out. Turian, the underground laboratory. A lift was nearby that would take her to it. Without a word, Samus tosses the pirate aside and soon finds the lift. She had never been in these depths before, but she had to end this. As the lift comes to a stop, she's greeted by near total darkness. She readies her arm cannon, looking around, when suddenly a Metroid lunges at her from the dark. Samus dodges out of the way and tries to shoot it, but even the Variasuit's extra power does nothing.
Of course. Ice. Damn it.
She begins running through the facility, dodging the Metroid's lunges until coming across a containment room. This is where the pirates were keeping them, and they had freeze guns on standby just in case. She dodges its attack once more before grabbing one of the guns and freezing it. However, it doesn't look like it will stay frozen for even a few seconds. Thinking quickly, she dismantles the gun and begins searching for its icy core. She finds it, plugs it into her arm cannon, and obtains the ice beam. The suit begins processing its new power as the Metroid thaws and immediately latches onto the back of Samus's head. Samus falls to her knees, feeling the instantaneous drain of her energy. Summoning her remaining strength, she rips it off and backs away. It shrieks in anger and lunges for her, but she greets it with an ice beam. As it falls to the ground, fully frozen this time, she finishes it off with a missile. Samus breathes deeply, trying to recover from the odd feeling of having her energy literally sucked out of her, when a voice echoes through the room.
Samus Aran, daughter of Rodney and Virginia Aran, researchers who studied Chozo technology and developed a prototype neural network that was designed to exceed everything the Galactic Federation had developed until that point. The ones who gave me life, yet planned to abandon me.
Samus readies her arm cannon, looking around the room when a nearby door opens. She cautiously heads through it and is greeted by Mother Brain, now looking more like her traditional form, with spikes in her membrane and a thick mass of wires beneath her brain casing. Samus is taken aback at the sight, but keeps her cannon trained on Mother Brain.
The Aurora program was meant to be purely mechanical, but my biology was needed to properly process all the information. Only a Chozo brain could decipher Chozo history effectively and make it viable for the Galactic Federation. Of course, once that was finished, what use am I? I would be left utterly alone, disposed of as trash. It was all so clear to me when Ridley attacked K2L. My purpose was so much greater.
Samus shakes her head as she listens to Mother Brain's speech.
You can't help the pirates! They killed everyone on K2L! I know you wouldn't have been left alone. The Aurora units would have been a family. You could have communicated with them. Or even billions of people could have benefited from the network you established!
Bubbles rise in Mother Brain's jar as she laughs.
You think any of those creatures are worthy of me? I am far greater than any life form in this universe. I am Chozo, and I was given a new purpose. I will lead the space pirates to an era of untold glory.
At these words, Ridley slithers from the ceiling and perches on Mother Brain's casing. He bares his teeth in what might be considered a smile as the dozen remaining Metroids form up around him. Mother Brain had already obtained complete control. Samus is barely able to ready herself as the Metroids lunge at her. She fires the ice beam while dodging to the side, but is immediately caught by Ridley. Before he can do anything, Samus begins unloading missiles into his chest, the force loosening his grip and separating them. She only just recovers as another Metroid lunges for her head. She dodges using the Morph Ball, unfurls, freezes it, and shatters it against the ground. Samus attempts to keep track of the others, but Ridley has returned to his feet. His tail darts toward her, which she only just deflects using her arm cannon. She spins around and uses the momentum to punch Ridley. The force is enough to knock him back, surprised that anyone would dare hit him like that. But as he recovers, Samus freezes another Metroid and swings it around toward Ridley's face, shattering the Metroid and knocking Ridley to the ground. Two Metroids then try to sweep her legs, but she backflips over them before freezing both. Samus unloads her missiles, destroying them, but is suddenly ambushed from behind by the rest. Samus feels the energy draining from her body as the Variasuit's display flashes red, but she can't move, despite all of her struggles. In desperation, Samus turns off the Variasuit, giving her just enough room to escape as the Metroids hesitate, momentarily confused. As she tries to reform the suit, a claw suddenly grabs her by the head. Samus only sees a glimmer of his crazed eyes as he throws her body into the nearby wall. Her vision goes blurry as he lunges at her with his tail, but she's cognizant enough to redon the Varia suit. Ridley's tail rips through her armor, revealing the Zero suit beneath. Samus goes to shoot him in response, but his feral rage has made him faster. He catches her arm with one hand before grabbing her again by the head and grinding her against the wall until sparks are showered everywhere. He finally throws her to the floor near Mother Brain's casing, his tail ready to finish her off. But Samus is just barely able to retreat into her morph ball as Ridley's tail lashes out. She moves back and uncurls, unleashing a charged ice beam into Ridley's face. He screeches in anger as he tries to thaw his snout, rubbing it harshly against the metal floor. It's then that Samus sees all the wires and cords leading to Mother Brain's container. Without a second thought, Samus unloads the rest of her missiles into them, causing fluid and electricity to pour out. Mother Brain can only scream pitifully as her container goes dark and her body turns gray and lifeless. Struggling to her feet, Samus is met by a claw strike from Ridley, causing her to hurtle into the wall on the opposite side of the room. Samus lurches over from the impact and looks up to see Ridley standing above her. His tail impales her armor, embedding itself in her right shoulder. She winces in pain as he removes it and readies another strike. In defiance, she raises her arm cannon to greet him, causing his tail to become embedded in the barrel. Samus musters all of her strength to hold him in place before noticing something behind him.
You wanted the Metroids, Ridley. You can have them.
Ridley finally rips his tail free and goes to strike when the first Metroid latches onto his back. He tries to reach it and rip it off, but another attacks his face. Soon, all 8 of the remaining Metroids cover his body. Every time he's able to remove one, another attacks and keeps him off kilter. With one final screech, his eyes go black, and he falls to the ground. Samus slumps to the floor as they feed, exhausted, but ready for what she knows comes next. Sure enough, the Metroids begin to move towards Samus. Just as they're about to attack, she unleashes the ice beam into each one. Silently, she smashes them all, taking the time to recover her stamina and heal from her stab wounds. As she staggers back into the pirate's operation room, the lights begin to flash red. Every monitor shows a countdown. In one last desperate act, Mother Brain had activated the base's self-destruct sequence. Ignoring her pain, Samus runs toward the exit as everything around her begins to spark and explode. It isn't long until she finds the lift out of Torian and back onto the surface, but the planet looks like a literal hellscape. The ground beneath her shakes and rumbles as the lava flows begin bursting into the air. She needed to get out of here. Scanning the area, she spots a lone space pirate ship and heads for it, dodging the exploding lava and falling rocks. Samus throws herself into the ship and turns on the launch sequence. It rumbles to life as the space pirate pulls at the door in panic, but she ignores him and takes off into space, watching his body eventually fall into the massive explosion of the pirate's base. Bruised, battered, bleeding, but alive, Samus removes the Varia suit and puts in a call to Adam. He's confused at first, but softens as he sees Samus's face. Breathing a sigh of relief, he sits back in his chair and tells her that Federation scouts have already reported the explosion on Zebes. He thought she was dead. Samus is exhausted as she says,
The pirates killed Ellen. But I stopped them. The Metroids are destroyed, and so is Mother Brain. Mission accomplished.
Adam begs her to come back to the Federation for treatment where he's sure she'll be hailed as a hero, but Samus refuses.
If I hadn't come here, what would have happened? I can't take their rules anymore. Your friendship means more to me than ever, Adam. But I can't ignore someone that needs help. And I refuse to be protected by anyone else. No one else is dying because of me. You might think I'm alone, but I'm not.
She turns off Adam's communication and sits quietly, staring at the stars and the planet Zebes. She nods her head slightly before plugging in coordinates and making the jump into space.